This is a continuation to a video I did about nostalgia. Jack and I are going to take a drive in his GTI. He's going to explain why he bought it and why he wants to sell it. And that is a good lead-in to our discussion, so let's head into the car. Oh, Jack. Just got out of the garage. Now we're going to do a drive and discuss nostalgia, reverse nostalgia, and a lot of deep car talk or just psychological talk. And I want to try to connect with the viewers on this because I think it is a valid topic.
So you and I have both bought cars from our past. You bought 4 S2000s. This is a car you've continually revisited. The first one you bought was in your mid-20s, right?
I think it was, yeah, like 23 or 20, no, maybe 24, 25, something like that.
And I've just recently purchased this Mark 7.5 GTI. And I owned a Mark 6 GTI. It was my very first car, and I, like anyone, loved that car. Even though it wasn't perfect, it left me stranded on the side of the road. It was the typical Volkswagen problems of being broken all the time. I adore that car, and it makes me, it made me want to buy this, essentially. I wanted to revisit or try to recapture some of what I enjoyed so much about this car, and sadly for me, today, I kind of regret it, to be honest. Not that there's anything wrong with the GTI. The 7.5 Gen is a good car. It does everything well. Just it doesn't connect with me emotionally at all. I just view this thing as a total appliance where, you don't feel that way about the S2000. It's a car we just talked about. You never get rid of it.
I feel like you bought this car for the wrong reasons. You bought it, and when you were telling me you wanted to buy like a daily driver, I'm like, okay. I given what you told me about how the previous Golf you had was problems for you, I never really understood why you bought this.
I think it's because when I think of my old GTI, like many people, I don't view cars as like a status purchase, right? I view them because of the experiences they provide for me. And I had so many positive memories in the original GTI that I've never been able to separate from that car. And other than my sunroof panel flying off in this car, it's been relatively trouble-free. So it's not even the negativity associated with that. It just hasn't caused real joy for me, and I don't know why.
Well, so my original S2000 purchase, I'm going back in time, and I'm thinking about it, and when I thought, okay, this was my dream car, I knew at that time I had just started making some money, and I wanted to spend $20,000, which was an insane amount of money for me back then. And I couldn't find one that was clean for under $24,000 even back in the day. And it was only like 2 years old. So I went way overboard. It was the first time I planned a trip out of state. I bought a car without ever seeing it. I flew to a place and met a private owner that I had no experience with, that it almost gave me PTSD. I'm not kidding, because it was so big to me at that point in my life. And I loved that car. It was working hard to get it. It was working hard to have that experience, and I'll never forget it. And I was always wanted another one. I always wanted to recreate that experience, and I was never able to recreate it again. I bought another one, wasn't the same. Bought another one, went out of state again. It was a really weird experience. Owned it, never felt the warm and fuzzies. And this last one, I just realized, look, I'm never going to be able to be 25 again. I'm never going to be able to be 16 or 30 or whatever. I can't recreate those past times in my life. So this last S2000, I finally made peace with the fact I really do like this car. Okay. I can't recapture my youth, but it is a monument to my youth, to those experiences. And every time I look at it, I do have fond memories of it. But this chasing thing that we wind up doing with cars or other things in life, from relationships, food, whatever we fill ourselves up with to try to make ourselves happy, whether it's shopping, you can't do it. You can't fill a hole in your life or experiences by buying something and expecting it to change your life. And I think that's what I've done with cars, and that I'm no longer doing.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, right? When it comes to buying vehicles, particularly when you're older than I am, you've had more life experiences. Part of purchasing vehicles is trying to recapture a certain emotion or feeling you had when you were younger, or a valued experience. And I guess that's kind of what I did with this, but I didn't think of it as this, it wasn't me trying to be 16 again. I had warm and fuzzies towards this car because, I thought it was this great everything vehicle that I remember fondly as this passage to being able to do everything so well. And now I think maybe because of all the experiences I've had in so many great cars, this just doesn't deliver that for me anymore, that I've just felt so dejected by its ownership.
Well, I think part of it, again, is the emotional and mental part of ownership and buying things. I think what you're saying is proof that people don't buy things for black and white or logical reasons. And this car is a perfect example of there's absolutely nothing wrong with this car. Everything wrong with it is you.
Yeah.
It's you are the problem. You made the decision based on some weird factor that you couldn't account for, and now that you have it, you're like, what did I do? And I think a lot of people do make decisions. It's not just cars. A lot of people make decisions like that. And when we're doing car videos, it's really hard to remove the mental part, your bias part, and trying to connect with people on how real people think. I totally understand even today, there's people that can't spend that kind of money on cars.
Something that we've tried to do with this, and something that you and I talk about all the time, is trying to make this relatable and digestible to people, while not losing perspective that we get in and out of so many cars. You see this with some of the other reviewers. You can tell a lot of cars don't excite them anymore like they used to.
Yeah, the more people you see doing this, the worse it gets. Everybody winds up being the same unless they're really not a car person and they're just doing it as a 9 to 5. And they're doing it as like, oh, this is my job, and they go home and they don't ever talk about cars. I think when you're a real car person, you drive hundreds of cars. At the end of the day, you're going to be jaded. And I don't care who it is. The people that have been in this game for the longest time tend to be like, all these cars are the same. It's all bullshit. It's all garbage. Because now, whatever you got into it for, whatever you originally had the passion for, has been scrubbed. And I think even people that go through a lot of car ownership, like not even in doing videos and media,
feel the same way.
The people that buy hundreds of cars, they just wind up being like, they're ambivalent to it.
That's like Jabron, a viewer of ours who's a spectacular guy. He asked me recently, what should I buy? And this is a guy who's owned a GT3, Spider, a 458, these tremendous cars. I'm like, man, you're gonna have a really tough time trying to figure out what's next after these cars to fill that void.
Right.
Now, we're not in that boat
No,
at all.
and now I'll never be on that boat, but I think I've already experienced a lot of these cars where I know I don't have to own them. But if you're paying to buy these cars and you've already reached that peak, basically it's downhill from now. Like in 2021, really, it's downhill. The only thing that you can look forward to are these crazy one-off hypercars that there's no normal person can afford. You're not going to dump $2 million or $1 million, or you have to get into a race car, which then carries a ridiculous price tag. So I guess, what are we trying to say, Jack? Don't buy anything because you're going to be disappointed
and dejected.
Yeah, no, that's not what it is. It's just, if you're buying a car to try to make yourself happy, you're setting yourself up for serious disappointment.
Particularly if you're buying it for the wrong reasons. If you're buying a car, and this is the mistake I made with this vehicle, because you really like what it is objectively, you like the way it drives, like the way it feels, that it delivers power, you'll be fine. But if you're like Mark and I, who are nostalgic fools and trying to buy cars because trying to connect with some past experience,
some damage that's in your brain that doesn't make any sense,
you're probably going to be disappointed, or maybe you won't. But we have been.
I don't know. I think I tell people this. You have to, and I've told you this in the past. Like, I think when I first met you, you're like, oh, I want to get this BMW. I'm like, this guy's a fucking idiot. And I remember telling Karen, Karen, like, what is this guy doing? And I'm like, okay, he's dead set on it. You have to let people experience stuff. And you have to let them go through it, or they don't grow. And I think that's the most damaging part about the human psyche. Is you could lay out a history book, you could glue somebody's eyes open like in Clockwork Orange and force them to see the results of their action. You could show them the future and they'll still go and make the same mistake or do the same thing, even though you told them, because that is our flaw. We all have to go through our own path. And I think car ownership is a microcosm of that, and because it's not like people don't take it seriously, but they do. It's that fun like way of experiencing stuff that you carry out through your whole life, and they become milestones like pets, right?
Yeah.
You have a pet from your childhood, you'll never forget that pet. It's much like a car. A car is a monument of that time, that age that you were at in those experiences. And I think the older you get and the older people you talk to start to tell you that, oh, I remember when I was 25, I had this. When I was 45, it's so weird of
the human psyche.
Yeah.
So with that, Mark, as we turn onto Nipper Sink Road, let's end out the video.
Thanks. Goodbye. Is that a check engine light?
No, it's my adding windshield wiper fluid. I know. No, you want it to be
Why
a check.
does it need a sensor for that, really? I mean, you
'cause
can't
it's
just
the
check. That's too much work.
Yeah.